Thank you for staying tuned. Well, the bears have had a firm grip on the market this week as the all-share index has been in the negative territory all the week. Well, let's see what has changed at the moment. At intraday, we saw that index down 0.02%. Let's do a quick crossover to my colleague there at the Exchange Temple, Ashaju, to bring us up to speed with the developments at the moment. Hello, Temple. Good afternoon. So bring us up to speed. What's the update on the index at the moment?
Well, we have a market that is currently down some 0.13% again. We're seeing losses across major sectors except for industrial goods segment, which is mildly up some 0.05% at this point. Then the consumer goods segment of the market also trying to help weather the storm. We've seen the likes of Dangote Flour raking in some 1.13% gains, and a couple of other firms in the oil and gas in the consumer goods side of things. Dangote Sugar is also trying to get some gains. These are companies, especially Dangote Flour, which has been recording some good gains for some time, had been on bid for weeks. However, I think the kind of sentiment we're seeing in the market right now is that of profit taking, given the fact that the likes of Chams PLC, which had seriously made some good gains in the past 10 sessions or thereabouts, as well as Japol PLC gaining some 95%, are currently experiencing some profit taking in the market. Investors have seen that, okay, so this looks like it is reaping enough for me to take profit, and so they take profit on it. Then they're also watching some counters where things have been down, prices have been beaten down. So the likes of Stanbic IBTC is an opportunity for investors to also go into. That sector has risen by some 2% plus now, and of course that company rather has risen by some 2% plus, and has also seen a bit of an upshoot in its price. So that's where we are seeing investors, moving into. Quite a number of companies have gone on bid, have gone on offer rather, due to bargain hunting that we're having across the side of the market. But if you look at the activity level of the markets, it's not looking too good. Earlier it was down by some 53% compared to what we had yesterday. But then we still have to wait till the closing bell, when we'll now see how much has actually been exchanged. But with what we have so far, the index, of course, is still lower at the 28,000 psychological mark. That's not looking like anything that will change with the sentiment we are seeing right now, because, again, the interest of investors in the market has really waned. We haven't seen so much of opportunity. We understand that the financial markets has so much of a robust liquidity level at this point in time. If you look at what happened at the bond market yesterday, quite a number of securities actually had a bit of cherry picking from investors in the market, because you'll see fund managers looking for little opportunities, no matter how little it is, to put in money. But when we saw that, in the bond market and, of course, the treasury side of the market, the equity market is not enjoying that level of appetite at this point in time. The reason for that is still because we haven't really seen so much of any catalyst in the market. So these are domestic issues, if you ask me, because if we compare to what we've been seeing in the emerging and other frontier markets, things are looking very bright there, given the dovish performance or dovish decision of a lot of central banks, across the globe, and the sense that the global growth could actually improve again. So it is only Nigeria that is yet to experience some kind of, to partake in this gain, that has been going around the markets. But we'll just wait to see. Investors and analysts generally are bullish on the second half of the year, hoping that by the time we have the inauguration of the new administration, which will be coming on board this year, by this month, rather on the 29th of May, that will shape the decision of investors in the second half of the year going forward, maybe by the tail end of June through to July, second half of 2019, Chimeze.
And if all things being equal, the market may perhaps see some kind of respite before this week runs out. We just have one more day to go. Thank you, Temple. Well, the International Monetary Fund projects favorable economic growth of 6.7% between 2019 and 2024 for the Republic of Benin, driven by high agriculture production, rising private investment, and the development of new sectors such as tourism and the digital economy. However, the fund emphasizes on the importance of speeding up reforms aimed at improving the business environment and infrastructure, strengthening governance framework, economic diversification, promoting high-quality education and health, and addressing the vulnerabilities of the banking sector. The IMF also advised the government to increase revenues as that is essential to finance transfers to the poor and social insurance programs such as the new health insurance system, which has recently entered in its pilot phase. In the meantime, the IMF has warned the Ugandan government that its public debt may expand to 50.7% of its gross domestic product as the nation borrows for infrastructure investment ahead of planned oil production and in a bid to become a middle-income economy by 2040. In its Article 4 report on Uganda's economy, the IMF says the debt may rise to that level by the end of June 2022, from a projected 42.2% of GDP in this financial year. Obligations to external lenders may account for more than a third of GDP, from 27.7% this year. Uganda's debt climbed 22% to 44.7 trillion shillings in the fiscal year to end June 2018 as the country borrowed to build roads and hydroelectric dams. The IMF says interest payments are projected to take as much as 20% of revenue in 2019 to 2020, a level typically only associated with countries at high risk or in debt distress. And Uganda has launched a second round of competitive bidding for 5 oil exploration blocks in the west of the country, where it has already discovered commercial crude reserves. The Energy Ministry said a total of 4,928 square kilometers will be offered in the new round. Energy Minister Irene Muloni, speaking at an oil conference in Kenya's seaport town of Mombasa on Wednesday, invited investors to take up the blocks. She said many exploration companies were expected to show interest in the blocks with the current relatively high price of crude oil, making an investment attractive. Uganda launched its first oil block auction in 2015, covering 6 exploration areas, measuring 2,674 square kilometers. Prior to that, the country handed out blocks on a first-come, first-served basis. And data from Egypt's Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics shows that the country's annual urban consumer price inflation eased to 13% in April from 14.2% in March. Egypt has been carrying out an IMF-backed economic reform program since 2016, which saw inflation rise to a high of 33% the following year. It has since subsided, though rising prices for fruit and vegetables have prolonged inflationary pressure. And that's it on the program. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chimeze Obi Uwagu.